a short preview of tonight's meeting out to our staff, and there was a lot of enthusiasm around bringing back the activity buses. And so activity buses, just as adding any type of sport or music or club, all certainly come with budgets, and that's what I would expect to bring to you before we finalize any formal budget, because I would like to see, if we're going to do the activity buses, I would like to see that start next fall. And Mike and I have talked, we could work with Palmer and its X number of routes and try to determine what that would look like. And of course, like everything else, you can monitor and adjust that. If we're off or whatever, we can work with Palmer's so good to work with us, we'll figure it out. So I guess what I'm hoping to, through discussion here tonight, is to get the go-ahead on those two feasibility studies. Thoughts, comments?
Can I ask a question about
Sure.
the activity buses?
Mm-hmm.
How does that work?
Mm-hmm.
If we have kids in 8 different activities, is there always an endpoint, always a?
Do you want to come up, Mike? We conceptually talked about east-west, right?
We conceptually talked about east-west, but there are a number of things that we're still gonna have to work out. For instance, in fall sports, or in spring sports, boys baseball uses 3 different fields that aren't right by a building, so how do you take care of the kids? And we haven't worked those spring sports out. Track is all located at junior high west, but, so there are some issues there. Volleyball would typically be at a building, at the high school, it's the 9 through, or the 10 through 12 would be fairly simple because a lot of that's right there. And then you do an east and a west or something like that. The junior highs would be a little more difficult. Soccer is over at the soccer complex. Some of them are here and there. So those are all some of the details we haven't worked out yet, and we need to, talk about.
Part of that study, we could include some
talk about
potential.
at a study, so.
But it's possible.
In theory, what we were talking about were 2 buses at junior high east, 2 buses at junior high west, and 2 buses at the high school, and each one goes at 5 o'clock or whatever. One goes to the east, one goes to the west or south.
And part of that compromise too is coaches and others have to work, if they know that we have it, they have to
Right.
kind of work within that schedule too.
I think the activity bus is kind of a cornerstone to opening doors to kids who either don't have the ability to have parents pick them up, or whose parents are working, or just frankly haven't been part of sports or activities because they can't get home. They need to take the regular transportation home. So I think that that's a very important thing. Would love to see some budget around it and some details as to how it would work, and what it would do scheduling wise.
I got a call to Palmer, and I've asked them to start looking at it, and they haven't. Those were some of the initial questions about how we're gonna handle it, and
certainly as we keep expanding our student base, we're gonna have a natural limit because teams can only be certain size. So anything we can do to expand opportunity, and the buses, I think, are an integral part of that, I'd be all for. So I think we should always be looking at that. And even beyond the ones you mentioned, what are some of the student-based things, like the robotics type programs too, that we should be looking at?
Yeah.
If we're talking about limitations to participation, included in the discussion, I'm wondering, is there any talk about storage for equipment? Like, I know for several of the teams, parents have to come to the schools twice a day, once to drop off the equipment, once to pick up their child from the activity.
I don't think we've been that specific yet, but I think as part of our, like for example, gymnastics opens up the whole facilities question, the storage question, and all that. So broad-based, I think there is opportunity to broadly talk about the bringing of, there's always the problems of bringing of golf clubs and all that kind of, So I think that definitely has to be a part of our building our future, and so we can include that as part of general overview of what we're doing with increased numbers and increased need for space, and then clearly our enrollment crunch.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about homework. Would this open the door to offer more opportunities for tutoring and homework as well?
I would absolutely think it would. We seem to regularly, if you remember our past pilots and experiences, transportation always gets in the way of our homework help and some of our kids of color, some of our diversity issues, some poverty issues that they just can't get there. And so I absolutely think this would help us.
Any other comments, questions? I'm all for both studies.
Okay.
Yeah.
They fit well into our growing population, and if there's a need, let's fill it.
Okay. So I'll plan on bringing that at our next regular board meeting.
Okay, then we'll go to 8.1, under new business action items and student admission fees to athletic and performing arts events.
Thanks, Mary. You know, the board has talked informally for some time about how do we create opportunities for kids to come celebrate, to be a part of the student body, to gather, to be a gathering place. When you think about Shakopee, where our teens can go and hang out, the safest place for them to be is in our schools. And so one of the things that we've informally talked about, and now I'm going to bring forward as part of a formal ask, is that Mike and the cabinet and I have talked about the pros, the cons, the budgetary implications of when students want to participate in our teams or in our performing arts, but maybe didn't have the skill set or still want to be part of the bleacher creatures or those kinds of things. If they really do want to do that, it can be quite an expense, especially with larger families and kids, and noticing how our community is changing. We want to be very sensitive so that all students can participate and be a part of our student body. So what I'm going to offer up is a proposal that will allow all students in grades 9 through 12 free admission into our athletic and performing arts events. And then students in grades K through 8 would receive free admission when accompanied by an adult to the event. So I'm going to recommend approval of that request.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Discussion?
I think it's, go ahead.
I have a question. So football is a big deal. I think we get good attendance. What is going to happen when everybody comes to football? Where are you going to sit?
Stand up on the bleachers in front of everybody else.
I mean, there's,
That could be.
to
You
me,
know,
my
it-
biggest concern is there's just so many kids that already are coming to football, and it just seems overwhelming.
My experience has been that we haven't, I don't think we've had a complete sellout, if you might say, where we didn't have space. We talked about if we allow K through 8 students to come in without an adult, how it could be, a monitoring issue. I guess our cabinet maybe thought that the adults can figure it out and the adults can monitor. John had brought up the idea of on the student IDs having barcodes. I think that's a great idea, so that when someone zips in, it'll say Matt McKeon, grade 7, that he's been in attendance. Also, if they get some trouble, you have a scanner, you can figure out who the kid is, that kind of thing. Wouldn't it be great if we had that problem? And I don't know that I foresee, even our biggest games, there always seems to be kids running around. I don't think they're out of control because we do a good job of monitoring it. But I remember during the past referendum, that one of the criticisms I heard is that no one attends our football games. You might get someone at the homecoming, you might get people at the homecoming game or whatever, but no one attends. You hear our kids talk about how they would like to go to these things, but for them, even going to a volleyball game for $4 or $5, and then and then you go to a football game, $4 or $5. I mean, that prohibits kids from going. So I don't know what would happen if people did actually show up and sell out our events. I don't know. Maybe we'd have to look at building something else.
I'd like to find out.
Chuck?
You know, I'm supportive of dropping the cost, but, I wanna jump forward if I can to 8.2, where you're looking at, keeping the activity fee. So really what we're telling now is you have to pay to play, but not pay to watch. And that feels a little bit wrong to me too.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think what the cabinet went to, Chuck, is that there is an elite group of people who do pay, but it's because they have the football skills to play. These other kids, through no fault of their own, are perhaps limited to their ability to contribute to the student body, school spirit, and their ability to contribute is to cheer on their friends who already have a leg up, you might say, on the football field or the volleyball court and that kind of thing. So it is a philosophical drawing a line, line in the sand of what we believe in, and what we're asking is that with participation fees, which will be coming up next, that you review that. Our recommendation is that we've had great success with a majority of our kids, and we believe that with kind of the angel fund, if you will, that we'll be able to continue doing some of that. But that's why these two are kind of back to back, I suppose, is that one could say, well, free admission, you could charge $20 for student ID, you could use it for good grades, you could use it as a number of things. Our cabinet is suggesting that we don't put any extra hooks on this, that we see next year when we allow our students to participate as a full-fledged member of the student body with their ID, what does that do for our events? It's interesting when you go to section finals and you go to, I think of one of our, take volleyball for example, one of our best sports, we're 1-3 with the opponents for student participation. Now that's probably a bad example because that's postseason, but I think knowing the board and knowing that you guys all attend events, it's kind of a ghost town in some of our winter sports and some of those things. People just aren't going. And the other thing it does do, if you bring a student, their parents are actually paying to get in. It's kind of like when you have the little kids play ball at halftime or they dance, and then of course when they go, they buy pizza, they buy concessions and all that. So I'd be interested in how it works itself out. And we make these decisions on a yearly basis anyway. And if we find out, for example, that we're in jeopardy with the fire marshal because we have too many football fans, then we would have to make some adjustments and do some things differently.
And I do have one concern. There was in the past too, we have the opportunity for parents to look for free daycare, and they pay their admission, drop the kids off, and leave. And the kids
That's what they do now. Yeah.
Unsupervised. And it's even more of an incentive now because they're not paying for the students to enter as long as they pay for their admission. That is a concern I have. I guess that will be vetted out in the next year when we see how this goes. Maybe have to tweak things a little bit.
But I do want to support what you're saying, and maybe even a message to our parents in that this is a way to increase student participation and belonging, acceptance, school spirit. It is not a babysitting piece, and that I think it would be underestimating our community if we didn't kind of establish that, hey, the responsibility is not that you pay your ticket and go. Your responsibility is that the spirit of doing this is for your child, and we want you there to help monitor should your student get in trouble or should they do something they shouldn't. We're not taking the place of the parent there. We're asking them to cooperate with us, and if they cooperate with us, it could be a very nice family-friendly activity. But our cabinet discussed that too, Mary, and that's something that could go south if we don't get the cooperation from our community, because we don't have, no matter how many people we send to a ball game, we're not gonna have the type of support there, in particular thinking about football. We're just not gonna have enough people there where we're gonna be able to babysit other people's kids. We just can't do it.
I had 3 questions. Start with the last one. This would just be for home activities, so there would be no, okay, nothing for away.
No.
To your point, Chuck, on the whole pay-to-play thing, I was just thinking that was a good point, but I'm also looking at the fact that this opens doors to audience and access for folks where that income piece was an obstacle, so some people could simply attend activities and events that they would not have ever desired to, or maybe even thought it was, I don't wanna spend the $5 or whatever, and sometimes just getting somebody in the door somewhere is all it takes to actually hook them. And then maybe, participation fees could, for all you know, increase, based on that. But then the third thing I had was, the student thing is great, I love the free admission, for the students, but is there any chance that we could, and we talked about this in the past too, kind of bridge that generation gap a little bit and maybe look at offering something to our senior population, and I don't mean high school students, talk about,
We already give
we already do?
the senior citizens are in
Do
free.
they all know that?
I'm sure not.
I'm thinking maybe we can tag this on, with seniors, I don't know.
I think a lot
A little, I see a little marketing opportunity here, cause I
Mhm.
think if people don't realize what's available to them,
Yeah.
we gotta get that out there a little more.
I agree, and that's something too that we can work on, Crystal, as we kind of talk about whatever action we take. I did want to go back to what you said, Chuck, because I forgot to mention, if you're a free and reduced family with the or the lunch, if you get free or reduced through John's office, you can sign up. So, to the concern that if you're able to watch it for free, but you have to pay to play, I'm very proud that there's a good number of kids that get either sliding scale or waive because of that angel fund that takes care of them. And I know John's office is really good to do that in a very respectful way, and even looking at ways that we can even make it better. But that's something that would help with that type of a discussion.
Well, I just wanted to commend that program, I think that's fantastic, in a district where we have 30% free and reduced. Just not only from it being the right thing to do, but just to increase athletic competition and involvement and improve student engagement, finding ways to get those kids to be involved in activities and athletics after school, I think makes them better students. I think it makes our teams better, it makes our community stronger. So I think that program is fantastic.
Any other comments, questions?
Do we need a formal
We already
yeah,
did.
we
already did
We
that.
did. All
It's
those,
catching.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. We'll go to 8.2, which is activity fees for the 2014-15 year.
I sent to the board, John had a colleague that he worked with that did some fee comparisons, and now that we've entered the big school South Suburban Conference, I thought it'd be important for the board to take a look at where we're at in comparison to our competition. And then also, because Mike is doing the preliminary to final budget, anything we do here has budgetary impact. So as I mentioned earlier, the cabinet reviewed the activity fee comparisons and believe that at this time is not the time to increase our activity fees. We have a cap as well, and I think that what we will be asking from you is to keep the fees the same, but certainly open to discussion, dialogue, and or a request to change it. But that's where we are at, is to keep them where they currently are at.
I guess a question that I have is, it's great that we have this budget now, and we've got this surplus right now. What I wanna make sure is we don't hold the line this year and then next year through some, other budgetary issues. Are we at risk of facing, a jump from 120 to 140 or something where a graduated step would, be proportional? You know what I mean? So next year, there's not families who are used to paying 120, it's 140, 150 or something like that. Do we feel good that this money will be available going forward so we can, you know, stay at a similar level?
Well, we control that answer, I think, because we determine, especially when it comes to the general fund, we will determine how much we invest or how much we save. And so, I don't really have a solid answer for that, other than, we have some major projects on the horizon that will affect how we spend and what we spend it on. So, I don't see anything in the near future that's going to force us to up our fees significantly, but it's always a choice.
Yeah, I think that's just something for us to be cognizant of going forward, that not necessarily that we have to stay at 120 for the next decade. I just want to make sure that if there are moves, there are small moves, and a family doesn't get 2 kids in sports and then next year all of a sudden their fees double or something, you know. Maybe it's more of a call out for us to just think about long term.
And it probably, for those at home, it's probably pretty tough to see it up there, but you can, just in summary, if you are a member of this community, our students, to be able to participate in various fall, winter, spring activities, are paying $120 participation fee. And I'll take football, for example, and Crystal or Sarah, can you blow that up on football just for people at home?
Yeah, I end up running both sides.
Okay, so maybe I'll just go over it. Prior Lake, for example, is $220, $180 for Bloomington, Hopkins $230. Let's see, who do we have there with the co-op?
Armstrong.
Armstrong co-op, sure. Cooper, Armstrong Cooper. Then we got 196 at 134, 160 Burnsville, Lakeville 275, 180 Farmington, Chaskatchan 250, Wayzata 160, Tonka 210. So really what we're grappling with as a district or as a board is right now, as you can tell, but we're also the new member that's coming in. We can see how this year goes, take a look, be ready to make an adjustment next year. We can appreciate that we don't kick kids out of our system by not letting them participate because of the fees are reasonable right now for families. Or as Matt pointed out, maybe you want to look at jumping everything up $20-$30, and then that helps avoid some of the bumps that we may or may not decide to do in the future.
Because we are the lowest of any of the districts in just about every single one of the sports. I don't think we're,
Wayzata's the only one even really close.
and I do know our transportation costs will be going down a little bit without trips to Red Wing and
Jefferson
Hutch
Kennedy,
and
too.
some of
Yeah.
these other places. But
Well, and if you look at, for example, in the winter, if you look at, for example, you got boys and girls hockey. I know there's been some discussion about, when you play boosters and then you go into our varsity, how the cost actually goes down. And you can see, for example, Lakeville, $600 for a fee at the highest end. You got $450 for Prior Lake, and then we're at $120. So you can see how there are some big discrepancies throughout the chart. And if we're not ready to decide tonight, we don't have to decide tonight. We can take a month to look at it and come back in June as we set the budget. Of course, any dollars that we raise through this would then just increase our general fund savings.
But then we're also, if we go with the no admission for students, the general fund will go down a little bit as well. It's not super significant.
Yeah.
Neither would be a $20 increase in fees across the board would be probably offset the free admission.
I have a question just on setting fees. Nobody's gonna set pricing in such a way that it prices somebody in or out of an activity. That, I would imagine that's not any philosophy, but what has the districts, and this is probably maybe for Chuck and Mary, has there been sort of a specific district philosophy on how to set fees? You wanna try to recoup a percentage of the cost?
Yeah,
Has
we're
there
not
been
gonna
any?
recoup anything close to.
I-
the
well, I'm
cost.
just
And it's
curious.
been basically, are we in line with the other districts?
Yeah,
Okay, so there isn't an actual,
No,
okay.
not that I remember.
and to a great extent, we're kind of proud to actually be one of the lower, within the conference. And even still, I don't know, if we went up even a little bit on some of them, I'd like to find a way to offset that and provide a student perhaps with the opportunity to try a sport for the first year and not pay a fee. But then again, our Angel Fund kind of helps to do that anyway, so.
It seems to me our message with not allowing or forgiving the admission to games is we want everybody to have opportunities. So to me, it seems as if we raise these, it's kind of contradictory to what we're trying to say.
Which is why I brought that up last time.
I would recommend just keeping them at least for this year.
Is that a motion?
Sure.
Second.
Discussion? Anything else?
I think it's great, I just wanna make sure that, we don't get ourselves in a ring, and we just,
That's-
mindful that, no, I think it's great, I think it's fantastic to be the lowest around, creating opportunity.
Any other discussion?
Just a reminder that this time next year, we can revisit those two, and if we need to make adjustments, we can do that.
Anything else? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion will carry. Since we're gonna have a really brief assistant superintendent update tonight.
That's right.
And things of that nature.
Wow.
The one thing she could have skipped.
Nice job.
Kinda heated on
Okay, item 10, superintendent update.
All right, so what I want to do is I want to just give you a brief snapshot of the agenda for this Thursday at 6 p.m. We have the Framework for Education Forward Group, and that's our Excellence in Operation and Facilities Action Team. And just a reminder to everyone that this group is somewhere around 100 people to 120 with our admin team that'll be there. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to take and reconfirm the purpose of what we're doing there. We're going to look at what the group responsibilities are and what the group roles are. We'll go through and take a reflection time to look at all the work we did the last time. Some of us were split up. Some of us went to Guiding Coalition. Some of us stayed with this action team. So for those of us in attendance that night, we're going to kind of just take and refine the Guiding Coalition or the Guiding Change document, and then take a real good look at what the action team does versus what the Guiding Coalition does. We're going to discuss the summary of the perceptions and observations. The group did some small group work, and the minutes, everything's up on the website, by the way, but we're going to just kind of make sure that everyone's aware of what the perceptions were, what the current realities were. And then we're going to start some of the base work, the reset work, and that is we have to come up with some baseline data. And that baseline data is our current land inventory, our current facility inventory, our building capacities, current utilizations, student enrollments, and student projections. We can't get far until we can get our heads around those three major areas. We also then in small group need to look at our growth and our capacities and start asking questions of what information is needed before we can get our heads around exactly where with these projections, where we're physically going to start putting kids as this fall we start the school year out over capacity already this fall. So I think all in all, this meeting on the 15th will be a good meeting, it'll be a positive meeting, and again, I'm really thankful that we have that many people willing to come together for the benefit of our students. So I think that's it, Mary. Other than this Friday, we have our retirement event at Canterbury, and we also have our Teachers of the Year will be celebrated, and our mentor-mentees. And I know some of you will be in attendance for that. And then, of course, graduation. Angela will be sending you some stuff if you don't already have it on what's expected of graduation. And we'll talk more about that as well in the upcoming days.
That's it.
That's it.
Committee updates? Any committees meeting? You guys make it so easy, I could've skipped that one too, huh? Information items, anything, Angela? Matt? Chuck?
Yeah, I got the opportunity last Sunday to go to the Teacher of the Year banquet, and Billy Koenig was one of the top 10 finalists. And actually, for a short period of time, he was one of the 2 finalists. As they were going through and announcing, they let out a little he, and there were only 2 males. But I don't want to forget the other people. You know, Casey Rutherford was in there as a quarterfinalist, and we had 6 teachers nominated, the most of any of the districts. And the same last year. I think last year we had